said she didn't like to talk to boys about serious things, but with me, it was different. How about that?
Sometimes an automobile can seem like a world in itself, a pleasant where the is in.
Thank heaven Jim left me the car today. I have so much to do.
And an automobile can seem like a miraculous time one who doesn't have the use of it very often. It makes all those errands almost enjoyable.
Plenty of zip in there now. What a difference that tune-up made.
To drive an automobile today is to be absolute ruler over a package of concentrated horsepower that would have been the envy of the greatest rulers of the ancient world.
That first order sold out in less than a week. Now if I can just keep them coming from the factory.
The smooth functioning automobiles of today simply do not demand our whole attention. We drive them almost as if we were passengers in them.
The girls picked a perfect day for the luncheon. Now, I think they said Walnut Street. Or was it Oak?
Often the farthest thing from the mind of a driver is the real possibility of misfortune or accident. In a way, perhaps that's as it should be. When life is good and driving the car is a treat and the driver is not doing wrong, why should there be a moment's thought of danger to shadow that good feeling of security? Well, because above everything else, a driver must constantly keep in mind what his basic responsibility is. Sometimes, just when an automobile seems like another world all by itself, there may be someone in another car around the next corner in this world, ready to shatter those pleasant thoughts. The responsible driver's thoughts must be on driving, 100%, and that means they must project ahead of his car and all around his car. Over 22% of all the people killed in motor vehicle traffic accidents in the past 5 years died as a result of accidents at intersections. Remember, there are two basic standards for determining who has the right of way at intersections where there is no visible traffic control. The first car rule says that when two or more cars are approaching the intersection in a lawful manner, the car that moves into the intersection first has the right of way. Obviously, a driver with good judgment would never try to claim his right of way at the risk of causing an accident. The same time rule says that when both cars reach the intersection at the same time, the car on the right has the right of way. Of course, at the intersection, the safe driver with good judgment, skill, and proper training doesn't indulge in legal hair-splitting about who must yield. It's best never to take anything for granted. A green light means you have the right of way, but it's not guaranteed. Be prepared at every intersection to yield or to use avoidance maneuvers. And the rule of good manners, as well as responsible driving, is always to yield to pedestrians. And incidentally, if the intersection is engineered with a special turn lane, pull over and get all the way out of the traffic stream until you can turn safely. Keep your front wheels pointed straight ahead so you won't be knocked into oncoming traffic if you should be hit from behind. It is well to have your mind quite clear about the meaning of signs and signals at intersections. The flashing yellow light means proceed through the intersection or pass the signal slowly and with caution. The flashing red light means stop before entering the intersection or at a clearly marked line, and then yield the right of way to all vehicles on the through street or highway before entering the intersection. The rule is the same as for a stop sign. A yield sign is somewhat like a stop sign, except that it does not require a full stop unless there is actual cross-traffic present that must be given the right of way. Driving today involves some rather complex skills, judgment, and knowledge, and only practice can keep them fresh. The variety of situations encountered each day makes a valuable contribution to a driver's reserve of experience. When an unpracticed driver's mind is preoccupied with errands and the situation is a bit unfamiliar, the shadow of tragedy can be very close. The expressway entrance ramp is the place to build up speed in anticipation of the fast traffic ahead. Inexperienced drivers who stop or are hesitant about entering the expressway traffic create a situation in which regular users of the expressway who expect to move quickly through the entrance might run right into the stopped car, perhaps even knock it into the oncoming expressway traffic. And there's another hazard. An uncertain, hesitant driver, stopped at the merging point, can't really see the safe gaps in the stream of oncoming traffic and, unless there is a big gap, can't start up fast enough to fit in without danger. Expressways and toll roads sometimes seem to be the nearest thing to flying. But don't be fooled. They require a special level of skill and concentration. Getting off has as many fine points as getting on. A responsible driver starts the turn signals in plenty of time to let other drivers know there's going to be a lane change. And then, checking both mirrors and the blind spot, changes lanes gradually. On the expressway, drivers tend to get adjusted to steady high speeds. The speedometer is the only reliable indicator of speed, while the driver's senses are readjusting to new, lower speed levels. But learning these things on the road in hazardous traffic situations is the wrong way. Heavily traveled roads are not the best place to try to get experience. The horsepower under the hood of many of today's cars gives the driver a personal sensation of power. But even though he can do much to conquer time and distance with this machine, he can't tame the weather with it. No car has power over the elements, and the driver must conform to changing conditions or else. At today's highway speeds, when there's water on the pavement, a car can behave just as if it were on ice. A skid can be a heart-stopping experience, but every driver can learn how to control a skidding car. In a skid, the rear end of the car tends to brake from a straight line and come around toward the front. If the rear end of your car slides to the left, you quickly counter-steer to the left. If the rear end swings to the right, steer to the right, then straighten out. Remember, if the rear slides left, quickly steer left. If the rear slides right, steer right. In a power skid, the rear wheels break loose either because you accelerate too quickly or go into a turn too fast. Let up on the gas immediately and steer out of it as you slow down. In the locked wheel skid, your front wheels aren't rolling, so you have no way to steer the car. You handle the locked wheel skid by keeping the wheels rolling. That means you never jam on the brakes. Pump the brakes. That is, apply them and release them in a quick pumping motion. It gives you rolling friction and control of your car. Of course, tires are a factor in skid control. Tests show that tires with good deep treads need less stopping distance on wet, smooth surfaces. What sort of surfaces to look for is very important in identifying skid situations. It doesn't take a hard rain to make a pavement slick. When oily film collects on the surface, just a small amount of moisture produces an extremely slippery situation. Besides damp, wet, icy, and snowy surfaces, a pavement or portion of pavement covered with fallen leaves can put a car into a skid. Loose gravel is another dangerous skid producer. The good driver is aware of what sort of surface is under his wheels and adjusts to the condition. On wet surfaces, there are many safety factors to consider. The texture of the pavement, the amount of water standing on it, the inflation of the tires, the type of tire tread, and above all, the car's speed. Even with good tires, A car going 45 miles an hour on flooded pavement just can't make the same curve it took successfully at 40. In the rain, even a well-drained road holds a film of water that may range from less than 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 inch in depth. At low speeds, the water can be drained out through the tire tread pattern. At higher speeds, a wedge of water starts to form at the front of the contact area, and even with good tread, as the speed gets higher or the water film on the pavement gets thicker, the wedge builds up and moves farther under the tire until it actually lifts the tire right off the pavement, and the tires are just sliding along on top of the water film. They're hydroplaning. That's just fine for boats or water skiers, but extremely dangerous on the highway. To learn about the hydroplaning effect on airplane tires, the National Aeronautics and Space Agency set up complex scientific equipment to observe what actually happens during this phenomenon. They ran a test wheel and tire through water and photographed the effect from below on a glass pavement. Slow motion photography showed the contact of a tire running in 1/2 inch of water at 25 miles an hour. The tire remained in contact, but there was a partial loss of traction even at this speed. Then the experimental run was repeated at 50 miles an hour with the same wet pavement condition. The test showed a complete absence of contact between the tire and the surface. There was no traction whatever. In full hydroplaning, the tire is actually riding on a layer of water. Control is no more possible than if the car were on ice. NASA studies show new tires will hydroplane in less than 1/2 inch of water, and smooth tires in less than 1/10 inch of water, according to the following specifications. They'll hydroplane at 42 miles an hour at a tire pressure of 16 pounds. They'll hydroplane at 51 miles an hour at a tire pressure of 24 pounds. They'll hydroplane at 59 miles an hour at a tire pressure of 32 pounds. Partial and full hydroplaning can be clearly demonstrated in the Automobile Tire Test Laboratory. A revolving drum represents the pavement. The tire is under an 800-pound load, representing the weight on one wheel of a car. Water equivalent to normal heavy showers is put on the drum beneath the tire. As the speed is increased, a water wedge penetrates farther and farther under the tire. Then there is partial hydroplaning. Traction is lost and the tire slows down until at 60 miles an hour it just stops. As it drifts out of contact at this hydroplaning speed, it can easily be moved backwards and forwards by hand under an 800-pound load. That's what actually happens on the wet highway, as demonstrations with test cars have repeatedly shown. On rain-covered roads at 50 or 60 miles an hour or more, your car wheels may hydroplane even with good new tires. So slow down when it's wet. Be especially alert for a heavy film of water on the pavement. Knowing the facts about hydroplaning could save your life. In bad weather or good, when it comes to not being involved in fatal automobile accidents, or any type of driving accidents for that matter, the drivers between 50 and 59 show the best record statistically. Could this be a matter of mature judgment? Oh, no! Blowouts can still happen. Here's what to do if one happens to you. Don't panic. Don't hit the brakes. Let up on the accelerator, hold a straight course, and let the car slow itself down. You can use the brakes lightly, only after you're sure you're holding a steady, straight course down the road. Normally, it takes only 12 pounds of pressure to control the steering wheel. A rear wheel blowout is actually a little more dangerous because you don't have the direct steering control you have on a front wheel to compensate for erratic moves the car may make. If applying the brakes lightly makes the car unsteady, concentrate on steering and just let the car slow itself down and come to a halt naturally. The possible reasons for a blowout include inexperience or carelessness in the repair of a tubeless tire, and driver abuse, such as thoughtlessly hitting sharp objects and curbs or ignoring tire pressures, thus building up destructive heat and breaking down sidewalls. And there's another important cause of blowouts: sustained high-speed driving on a tire that is not built for that kind of travel. Most responsible drivers try to do all they can to make an automobile trip as safe as possible. They get the car in shape, inflate the tires according to the latest technical information available, and they're a little more conscientious than usual about their seat belts. The seatbelt problem is an interesting study in human nature. People will usually buckle up for long trips, but may not use their seat belts for nearby driving. And yet, statistics indicate that 80% of all automobile accidents occur within 25 miles of home. Perhaps a greater realization of the impact forces that are generated in automobile accidents might help the people who have not yet formed the firm habit of using their seat belts. When a car smashes to a stop, the unrestrained human body continues to move forward at driving speed. Then the body impacts and whips into recoil positions. The driver or passenger wearing a buckled-up seatbelt or shoulder harness simply increases his or her chances for survival amidst the overwhelming forces that can be unleashed in an accident. In a collision, unprotected and unrestrained drivers and passengers fly about the car and out of the car with no chance to control or protect themselves. If you, as a driver, are for some reason not concerned about saving yourself, at least keep in mind others riding with you who may feel differently. Remember that in an emergency, your buckled-up seatbelt can keep you from being knocked unconscious and keep you close to the controls of your car, where your actions may be able to protect the safety, perhaps save the life of someone important to you, someone you love. Remembering to buckle up seatbelts or other restraining devices is just part of the responsible driver's preparation. On long trips or short jaunts, the driver with good judgment also makes it a point to learn exactly where to go before entering an unfamiliar area. The hazard of trying to locate signs and street house numbers while driving can sometimes produce near tragic consequences. The other driver may not always be so good at evasive maneuvers. A driver who is concentrating very hard on something else doesn't have too much chance of remembering turn signals unless the habit of using them has become absolutely automatic. It shouldn't take a near collision to make the turn signal habit unforgettable. It's simply a matter of knowledge and self-training in a variety of situations. If you're going to turn left at an intersection, you have a responsibility to start your left turn signal soon enough, at least 100 feet from the corner, so that everyone around you knows what you intend to do. If you're going to turn right, put your right signal on at a point where there will be no question about whether you're turning at the next intersection or at a driveway. As a driver, you constantly have the responsibility of informing those around you of your intentions. Oddly enough, it is very often when no other cars are around, when a driver is alone on the road, that the shadow of tragedy hovers closest. In these situations, a few drivers are lucky, but most are not. According to latest National Safety Council figures, 1/3 of all fatal motor vehicle accidents in rural areas and 1/4 of all fatal motor vehicle accidents are run-off-the-roadway accidents. Some tragic cases begin with the dropping of the outside wheels off the edge of a pavement that is higher than the shoulder. When that happens, the wheels catch along the rim of the pavement and can't easily be steered back. If it happens to you, let up slowly on the accelerator. Don't get impatient or embarrassed. Use the brakes very lightly. Don't try to jerk the wheels back by putting heavy pressure on the steering wheel. After slowing to a safe speed, feel the contact. Then, when you can gradually ease the wheels over, do so. In a large proportion of run-off-the-roadway accidents, although no one is alive to say exactly what happened, it seems clear that the driver in some way had lost control of the car. If you're not in condition to drive, don't. Keep yourself alert, aware of what's going on. The responsible driver concentrates on his driving, continuously shows good judgment, and puts distractions out of his mind. The primary task, once you are behind the wheel of a car, is to get yourself and others to your destination without harm. Just getting into a car and putting it in motion is a fairly mechanical act. But safe, skillful driving is not automatic, not something you do with one small part of your mind while the rest thinks of something else. Safe driving in today's traffic is largely a matter of judgment, and that includes courtesy, experience, knowledge, and constant awareness of the developing situation. Driving a car involves social as well as legal responsibilities, and each driver who takes his responsibilities seriously is a helpful example to those around him. The more skill and judgment you show, the more you contribute to general driving improvement and safety.